Hey Hofstra fans, it's time once again for the WB Masons Coaches Report. I'm Rob Joyce, joined as always by the head coach of Hofstra women's basketball, Krista Kilburn-Steveskey. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Now your team falling to Marist and Harvard this past week. What are your overall thoughts from the week?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's not fun not getting the W, especially in the Harvard game where we felt like that one was ours. We started off pretty aggressive in the overtime, things going in our direction, and then one quick little blow there. We had a turnover. We missed a couple really easy layups, and then we didn't execute as well down the stretch. And we watched that as a team yesterday, and those are the things that we just have to improve on quickly because we wanted to get that one at home.
And we'll start with Marist falling 85-70 up in Poughkeepsie in the second half after holding halftime lead. The Red Foxes coming out white hot from deep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we shot the ball better in that game. Still wasn't much of a defensive specialist for any team. Giving up 85 and then them giving up 70 points. It was 70-80 with a minute and 24 seconds. I think that's the closest that we got it. And again, that 10 to 8 minute mark, we just made some crucial blows where they hit some threes in transition. We had a lot of unanswered baskets. We had 17 unanswered baskets that we gave up in the first half and 11 in the second half. So I felt like, we talked about that. We, went over that and showed that. I thought we did a little bit better job against Harvard of not giving up as many. But then, down the stretch, right in the overtime, we had a chance to, contain number 21, Lippert, and she drills a three. In overtime, that was pretty costly that we were right there on. So, I mean, we just got to get better on, whether we need to play defense when we're tired or how we need to contest, how we need to guard behind the arc because it's costing us.
Then early on in the Marist game, Shantae Evans breaks the school's all-time rebounding mark, passing Kate Gordon. I know she said afterwards she doesn't really care because she didn't get the win, but still, what's it mean?
I mean, she does it for her, though. You want her, she's going to get this team on the right track, and she's leading the way. And the way we practiced yesterday and the last few days here, we get ourselves ready. We're going to be deadly. We're going to be deadly, when it counts for sure. I mean, everything counts, but I mean, right now we're dealing with what we have to deal with, playing against some pretty top-notch teams. But you want this for Shantae in her senior year. She wants it, and she just needs to take. This is the first time in her career there has been a lot of pressure, directed toward her. And then she's had a lot of other people who can help buffer that, help share that. And then, now you have Shantae Evans and Candace Bond, and they're really, very good role players, very good, not a role player on the court, but, very good at leading by example. And, they're having to carry a little bit of the weight. So I know that has a lot more, on them than you can realize. So, but they're highly capable of doing it and embracing that role and understanding what all comes into that role. Because who's looking to who down the crucial seconds of a game? It's them. It's Candace Bond and Shantae Evans. They're the ones who've been here the longest, and it's a natural progression that you want to. So you're hoping that Shantae keeps embracing this, keeps leading the way she can, and good things are going to come.
The person feeding her the ball, Andrea Thomas, career high 7 assists against Marist. She has more assists than turnovers the last 2 games. Are you happy with her improvement?
Completely. I felt like those last 2 games was the point guard that we can coach, that we can continue to work with, how she's playing, a little bit more confident and a little less worrying, about controlling every aspect, and I think that's pretty, if you ever played point guard, it's not a spot that, everyone can actually handle. Usually generally gets most of the blame, and, even in an offense where a lot of people are handling the ball, but things need to go through her when things aren't well. She needs to even be more aggressive and taking control over that, because she can make really, really good decisions. I mean, that's one of their strong points that she's always had. I thought she saw the floor well. I thought she makes great decisions, and then she's just got to have a lot more confidence.
One freshman you pointed out positively last week, Alexis Carter, giving more good minutes off the bench against Marist. Have you seen her grow?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously she has the skill set, and she's got, started to feel better, coming off some of the things that she was experiencing in preseason, and, a little bit more healthy, and then having a little bit more, confidence as each game goes by. So it's good things.
Harvard, you fall in overtime 70-67. Was that the toughest loss so far this year?
For sure. They always talk about, loss is just horrible no matter what it is, whether it's 3 points, whether it's 20 points. But you go back, and it's pretty glaring, whether as a coach, how we could have executed down that stretch. We were running something that we run pretty religiously, that we do all the time. We all know what we want to run on the sideline, and, who we want, who's our first option to get the ball, who's our second option to get the ball. And that's not something that we just, we haven't worked on. And, but there's also new people in those spots, whether it be a new person taking out of the ball, new person flashing to the ball, new person rolling off over here, and only 2 regulars, kind of going out there. So put them in those in those experiences, and then we snuck one and got a good one at Stetson. And they put them in a tight situation where we execute down the stretch, and we are definitely going to build and get better on that. So we just gotta keep on trucking.
And just 15 of 26 from the free throw line. Free throws have been an issue so far in the early going.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. It was 67 to 70. Piggybacking off that statement, you go back and how you shot from the free throw line, and you missed layups in overtime, just blatantly missed layups. But you won't hear me. You just won't hear me. You mentally can't get into any kind of kid's head about the shot. We need to focus and finish. We need to work on it as a staff and practice with pads and with, shooting and scoring with contact. And, on the defensive end, the letdowns that we had in overtime, those are the things that are correctable. Those are the things, that you have to buckle up and take ownership over. So, both free throws every day in practice, you guys have been there and witnessed some of the things. And, I had said on the radio today, it's pretty self-inflicting pain that the team does to themselves because they're in control of how much running they're doing based on them making free throws. And, it's mental. Like, I thought Shante answered it pretty aggressively right after the game. Like, look, I made 2 to put me in overtime, put us in overtime, and, I can't get in my own way, mentally. And so I really do feel like the mental aspect of free throws is huge.
One person we've brought up the last 2 weeks, have to bring her up again. She's making us Youku a double-double, 12 points, 13 rebounds. You have to keep bringing her up.
Well, because, I've heard my assistants say this, and it's evident when you watch her on the film. She's hard to scout. She's mixing a raw sense of talent and athleticism with her hustle, which is pretty contagious. Other people sitting there on the wings watching, why AO is in the game. I mean, she gives it her all every second of the way. Most improved player I've coached in a long time to be able to play a guard position, a post position, play in the hole. We've gone small. You hoped, what I'm proud most about her is that this whole time, the things I have been pushing her, working with her, getting mentally tough, getting stronger, I think she's a pure example of that. She's a little bit of like that Terry of like, when you had to fight for a spot, you get an opportunity, and then look what you're doing, and you had a lot to improve on, and you've done it, and I think this a lot of times in this generation, everybody wants to play right now. Everybody thinks they deserve to do something now. She's just a pure example of a kid that, it just kept working, and she's an opportunity, and she's seizing an opportunity.
Now the losing streak's up to 5. You said after Saturday, no moral victories that you're taking. So how do you turn those morals into real victories?
Executing down the stretch, taking just, continue limiting. We can't have a setback here. We have to continue moving forward on limiting the mistakes that we're doing. Playing another very heady, smart team. One thing we will talk about shooting is that we have to be more selective. We need to, one thing about Princeton that they're going to do so well is that they rebound pretty high margin above everyone because they know where the shots are coming from. People know their roles very well. They don't really deviate outside of their roles. That's the kind of stuff I've been trying to explain about whether it's time and situation, who's taking a shot where, what we're trying to do. And they're pretty much hit with 4 seniors and 1 junior in their starting lineup. They play a lot of people, but that's what they do so well. That's what we have to do better. We can't step in our own foot and get in our own way. We need to clean up and put more than a Band-Aid on the things that we can control, and that's gonna, that needs to happen quick.
In terms of this week, you mentioned you take on Princeton tomorrow on the road, a team that just beat Rutgers by 16 last week, put up 93 on UMBC, and as good as Marist and Harvard, Tigers might be better. So what do? You said they are comfortable in their role, so how do you take them out of that role?
Yeah, and the thing is with them, very similar to St. Joe's, is they have a lot of depth. If you see, they've got one player double figures and everybody else is like 9'8", 8'7", 5'4", everyone is contributing. She's playing. She's that luxury where she's got established seniors. She's able to mix in her lineups with kids that are understanding. Instead of having 7 new players, she's got a lot of her main foundation. Very similar to where I played always a lot of people in non-conference in the past. She has that. She has that ability. And like I said, they all know their role really well. They're going to beat you at the own game if you are, not prepared when you come in. So, a lot of important facets that we have to take into the game, who we need to contain, what we need to give off, what we need to do, and those are things that we're going to do. Every team that I've seen on the schedule, every team that we've seen, we know that we're capable, but it's the things that we're doing and how we have to compete, and we can't let that up. We cannot let that up, and we have to keep competing, and the wins will take care of themselves.
And Sunday, fly down to Alabama, take on Auburn. Better than the team you certainly beat in Hempstead last year. What do you see from the Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I kind of take one game at a time, but and not an easy task, to do, in Auburn. So, we'll take care of one game first, and then get ready to go down there and still win.
All right, what would be the keys to victory this week?
Again, we need to control things that we can control. So we need to do a much better job, defensively again, and how we do that are things that we're working on, all week. And we just have to continue building on what we're doing and limiting the mistakes that we're making. So it's really it's been about us. And it continues to be about us because we've got to get better every game.
All right, Head Coach Krista Kilburn-Steveskey, thanks as always for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hofstra takes on Princeton and Auburn this week. You can check out both games and listen to them online at gohofstra.com. I'm Rob Joyce, and thanks Hofstra fans for tuning into the WB Mason's Coaches Report with Krista Kilburn-Steveskey.